Looking for fans.
We are live from beautiful
Hi,
Southern
all.
California.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, I
Hi.
am Dr. Christopher Vogelmann here with the famous Monika Klein, nutritional star of stage, screen, television,
Yes. Oh, yeah.
previously Malibu, and now I don't know where you are, somewhere close to Malibu, Aurora Heights, who knows?
Agora Heights. That's a good
There
one.
you go. I'm
Okay.
just trying to remember things. Yeah, so it's 90 where you are, right? Or no?
It is 90 degrees, so I have the fan on. So if you see my...
You have that Farrah Fawcett windswept.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I'm
Yeah.
going to share this to a couple of places. I called this Sugar, Honey, Honey for episode 9.
Yeah, that's what we're calling it. Well, in temperature like this, the sugar, it's going to melt. So
especially if it's in the form, my favorite form, which is ice
cream. Yes.
Oh, yeah. Hey, there's 3 people watching. Somebody, if anybody wants to come in or ask questions, we are totally up for that. I'm going to even put a little link inside there if anybody wants to come in as we discuss sugar.
Sugar. So I have lots to say about that. I just downloaded this article I wrote for Delicious Magazine way back. I think it was 1998, 1999. It was called Sugar Shock.
Are you going to be quoting yourself today?
I may be quoting myself because it's really good stuff and it's still very pertinent.
I think sugar is good stuff, but tell us more.
Well, there's sugar and there's sugar, right? Sugar. What's your question?
No, I'm basically sort of giving you the green light, like you're at a drag race, and we go from red, yellow, green, go.
So green. I also wanted to. It's Formal Friday, so I always wear my earrings, and they're kind of green blue.
I'm wearing my fish shirt. So for me, it's not Formal Friday; it's Fishy Friday.
Fishy Friday.
Yeah, it's a little different.
Yeah. So sugar. A lot of people are imbibing in this ingredient.
Imbibing.
In different forms.
I've heard people say, I don't eat dessert. I don't do this. I get my sugar from my wine, or my beer, or whatever it is.
Or how about your milk? There's a lot of sugar in there. But nobody drinks milk except in the morning with your cereal, which is loaded with all sorts of sugar. And so, there's real sugars, and then there's sugar additives, and then there's granulated sugars. There's all sorts of interesting sugars, and it's confusing. I mean, things like high fructose corn syrup and fructose and agave, these are really not good. And they're usually found in bagged boxes, highly processed foods. And even though they don't affect insulin per se, they will in fact affect your That is really.
You got very trouble saying. It's like a friend of mine who's a trademark attorney was talking about trademark registry process. So sometimes you get these tongue-tied things or tongue twisters when you're doing live. But hey, it's live.
Yeah, we're human, and it's playful, and it's all good. So,
exactly.
These will affect your liver function. They are really hard to process, and the liver finds it really hard for them to process. I mean, really, when we talk about natural health and healthy eating, we're always talking about not stressing your body, whether it's your gastrointestinal tract or your any part of your body. We want to eat what your body is used to eating and has been used to eating for 50,000 years or whatever. So we haven't really changed that much genetically in these 50,000 years. So you want to eat things that your body understands and can break down easily. Sweeteners are not that. I just finished listening to
which sweeteners are you talking about?
Oh, which sweeteners?
Are you starting with agave, or which everybody says is so natural?
Yeah, no, it's not. It's similar to fructose, because people like, oh, it's fruit sugar, so it must be good for you. Well, it's not when it's added to products and various processed items. So because fruit okay, so fruit, when you eat real fruit, you eat that apple, you eat those berries, you've got pectins, you've got enzymes, you've got all sorts of other things that help break down that food and slows down the process. So you've got all sorts of
You got
fiber
the whole
and
enchilada.
the whole enchilada.
Well, there's no enchiladas in fruit, but
Well, there might be avocado in enchilada.
true, and that's a fruit.
Avocado and enchilado. Okay, and gelato. I had actually.
And gelato. Don't forget the gelato when you're talking about the avocado.
Well, there must be some avocado gelato.
I'm betting somebody has created avocado gelato just because it sounds like fun.
I think it already exists, actually.
If not, we're going to create an avocado gelato right here. Gelateria. That's hard to say, too. An avocado gelato, yeah. All right, so back to the sugars. Sorry for the distraction. But then, people think it's fruit, because I've heard this before. Yeah. It's like, well, fruits and vegetables. Well, I eat lots of fruit. And I found this with diabetics who are just, I don't understand. How could I possibly have diabetes? I eat lots of fruit, and I drink orange juice, and I drink this
lots
and that.
Juice, yeah. So this is what I always say. You wouldn't sit down and eat 10 oranges in one sitting. Most people wouldn't. But yeah.
Not normally. Only when I'm really hungry.
Really?
No. I'm lucky if I eat 3 at a single sitting.
And sometimes they're so good when you pick them off the tree, and they're just so wonderful. But you wouldn't sit down and eat 10 oranges at once. And that's exactly what you're doing when you're drinking orange juice, like 6 ounces of orange juice, because it is, and a lot of the pulp is taken out. So a lot of the factors that can slow down that sugar uptake in the system. Yep. And what happens, if you've got too much sugar coming, you've got your insulin being secreted, and it's just going to start wreaking havoc with your whole blood sugar system. So you don't want to do that. You want to eat real whole foods, and you don't want to eat that many fruits a day. I usually say a couple of fruits a day, not 10 fruits a day.
No. But we've had, I know, I go back to my patients who've been diabetics and stuff, and they have like bunches of bananas saying, well, I need my potassium. It's one of the most horrible fruits that you can think of in terms of a high glycemic index.
Yeah. And also people who are taking blood pressure medication.
Yeah.
And that's what happens when your blood sugar is out of control. So there's hypoglycemia, which is low blood sugar. And this happens often when people are not eating enough or eating regularly, or they're eating a lot of the wrong foods.
Right.
So the hypoglycemia can turn into hyperglycemia, which is in fact diabetes. I have lived with diabetes, not personally, but my husband was diagnosed with diabetes a long time ago before I met him.
I thought there was like a news flash today, and I was like,
no.
What?
I mean, thank goodness I'm not genetically predisposed. See, this is Friday.
It's the same thing.
Funky Friday.
It's Fishy Funky Friday.
Predisposed to
make a wish on the fish and you'll speak better.
To diabetes, but yes. Diabetes is. I will.
Whoops, sorry.
I think I am having fish for dinner, actually.
Well, there you go. You're a good Catholic girl, actually. Or, no, wait.
I'm not Catholic. I was raised Lutheran, actually.
Oh. But my mom was Roman Catholic, but she hated fish, so that made for interesting.
Oh, well, there you go. There is no. Anyway, back to sugar and diabetes.
Sugar, yes.
I've seen the ravages of diabetes. When I met my husband, his diabetes was under control, and he had been diagnosed perhaps 20 years before, and he tried some medication. I think it was metformin at that time.
Oh, yeah, that was the big one.
Yeah, and so he didn't like it after six months of being on it. He didn't like it. So what he did is he changed his diet. He started exercising. He lost 100 pounds.
Wow.
So apparently this was before I met him. And so he had gone the route of obesity and diabesity, as we often call it.
Diabetes. There's a term I've never heard before, and I've had so many diabetic patients.
Really? You haven't?
Well, I've also had some skinny diabetic patients. So
yeah, and that's another misconception. People think that diabetics are always, have weight issues, but that's not so at all. Mm-hmm. So, diet can certainly affect you becoming a diabetic, but also stress can, which is really overlooked. My husband had a series of deaths in his family, at the beginning 2000 and 2003. And this really affected him negatively. It was such a stressor for him. And it kind of put him over the edge, so to speak. And by 2008, he was diagnosed with kidney disease. And then actually just before that, he was having eye issues, diabetic retinopathy.
Right.
So he has actually had almost every correlated disease related to diabetes or condition, except, thank God, amputation.
Gangrene is tough.
Yeah, thank God. I mean, anytime there's anything going on with his feet, I mean, it's immediate attention, because wounds don't heal very quickly. The extremities are very there's a circulation issue, so they don't heal, and they can turn into something. I have to say,
and sensation too. All that sugar just destroys the nerves, such that you don't even feel sometimes if you're injured. I know some people who've had wounds that are bleeding, and they had no idea, except you would see the blood coming through the socks.
Yeah, and I have experienced that, and we had a very interesting situation. My husband was gone for 4 months last year in 2019, and he was gone, and he was in a nursing facility, rehabbing, and so he was in a nursing facility and in and out of hospital that whole time. What they were doing, and I'm a mad advocate for him and his health team and all his healthcare and his healthcare needs. So I saw them putting him, like, he doesn't ambulate, he's in a wheelchair. I saw them putting him in a wheelchair for a shower, and they literally, in this nursing home, dragged his feet down the hall to this shower. Dragged his feet. I saw him one day, and I saw how his feet were really looking good. 2 hours later, I got a call from the nurse on duty saying, well, his feet are all like bruised and everything like that. I couldn't believe it. And I brought it to the attention of the staff, the superiors, and everyone. And they had done it. They slowed down a bit, but they did it a couple of times. It took us at least 3 months to heal that when he finally came home. So this is just one thing about the ravages of diabetes. This is one thing that, it is really a devastating disease. So we don't want, not that sugar can only affect, cause diabetes or.
No, because you've got the triglycerides can go crazy in terms of, cholesterol and things of that sort. People think that sugar and too much sugar leads to diabetes, but there's plenty of other things that can go wrong in the body when you overload it with what my dad used to call the white death.
Well, there's metabolic syndrome. And when we're looking for metabolic syndrome, we're looking at triglycerides, we're looking at A1C, of course, and A1C is what your blood sugar is within a 3-month period. So it sort of gives you a much more overall idea of how you're handling sugar, really. So your glucose, when you get a fasting glucose, is not, it's that day. It's not as good as an A1C. So we're looking at triglycerides, we're looking at cholesterol levels, HDL, and also glucose.
If anybody has any questions, feel free to drop them into the comment section below here, or you can just pop on here. And if I like you, I'll bring you in.
But sugar does not just affect diabetes. It affects a lot of other illnesses as well. So
it affects mood, mental health, and sugar is a very interesting correlation.
Yeah. And the more you have it, I used to say all the time, 1 bite is too many, 1,000 bites are not enough, because you start this cycle and you just can't stop. And you want more and more, like you're like an addict. It's a sugar addict. And, this article that I wrote was called Sugar Shock. So what you're doing is you actually are shocking your body every time you have it.
Well, it's a major shock to the pancreas, because suddenly, boom, you got to push out as much insulin as possible, because there's this flood of sugar in the bloodstream. And now what do we do? Yeah.
So that's real sugar that does that. And then the fake sugar affects the liver. directly.
Yeah. So
So
like
it's
all
going to
the
bypass the thing.
Nutri-Sweets, the Sweet and Lows,
Yeah,
the
yeah, the Splendas,
Blenda.
you
Yeah.
know, the the fructose that we talked about, the fructose high fructose corn syrup and the agaves. I mean, I have a list. I have a list of the most common names for sugar. So we've got the basic simple sugars. We've got granulated sugars, beet sugar, brown sugar, cane juice sugar, cane sugar, castor sugar. I mean, the list goes on and
Actually,
on.
do you know something that I found in Mexican culture, and I'm sure it's in other parts of Central America and other places, is eating whole cane, sugar cane, is really interesting and very refreshing compared to actually having sugar in its refined form.
Well, eating beets is
Yeah,
a good idea. I like
beets
eating
is
some
great.
of these dense starchy carbohydrates will give you sufficient amounts of sugar.
And
And
carrots are high in sugar, because we used to always have to caution people when they're drinking fruit, vegetable juices.
yeah,
They put carrots in there, and they're spiking their sugar levels too with 100% carrot juice.
but again, it's the juice, right?
Right, the juice, not the
You're taking
whole item. Yeah,
Yeah, again, we talked about eggs being so maligned, and the myth about how bad they are for you. Well, it's like carrots. People were stopping to eat carrots because it's got so much sugar. But if you eat the whole food,
right.
it's built to help you and to nourish you. So carrots are a good thing. I remember growing up and eating carrots right out of the garden. I mean, delicious, delicious.
Well,
So,
for those of us who may not be in a situation where we have a garden, it's still worthwhile putting that into your order if you're having things delivered, or selecting it if you go into the grocery store with your mask and your gloves and practicing safe distance shopping.
yeah. So, yeah, definitely. So natural forms of sugar other than fruit, of course, are these starchy vegetables, the beets, what was it called?
I don't think
Big Chewy.
Big
Remember?
Chewy,
God,
our friend Big Chewy, the
butternut
squash,
squash.
the
Yes.
butternut squash,
Yams and sweet potatoes,
acorn squashes.
acorn squashes, kombucha squashes. They're all really nourishing, and they've got not only. I mean, they're kind of built for health. Most foods that are come from Mother Earth are built that way, and they're really good for you. So well, I'm just trying to think of some other starchy vegetables. I'm sure
What would you think about, because this is just off the cuff right now, what would you think about
turnips
putting?
and rutabagas are also
I don't know, but turnips don't seem to be terribly sweet. Parsnips are, though.
parsnips are great too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lovely parsnip and a carrot kind of on you put them in some olive oil, put a little bit of garlic in there, and a little bit of so tasty.
You can, and I've seen soups made with parsnips and carrot soup and things like that, which are actually pretty interesting. But they're grinding, cooking up the entire carrot as opposed to just taking juice out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, you're using the whole food. So it's on it. I don't think I explained what I was talking about. Sliced parsnips, sliced carrots, some onions, perhaps a little bit of olive oil, a dash of salt, and a little bit of pepper, and you just sort of like steam stir fry it a little bit on the oven
Steam stir fry. What is steam stir fry? I'm really curious now.
Oh yes, it's what you do is you have olive oil and you add a little bit of water.
Oh, okay.
So you're creating steam.
Got it.
Yeah.
Steam stir fry.
So steam stir fry. Yes, you've never heard that before.
Not that expression. I mean, I've done what you're talking about, but I just call it stir fry. So,
it is steam stir fry. Yes.
As opposed to don't add water and just fry it in oil.
I just said that very easily because it's part of my.
She sells seashells by the seashore.
Yes. So then we have we talked about fruit juice and.
Oh, what about the hidden sugars? Because that's one I was reading something today.
Like aspartame?
That
like the fake sugars?
No, they're not fake sugars. No, I was talking about the actual hidden sugar in foods. And one of the things that was mentioned was ketchup has a lot of sugar. In fact, many brands of ketchup have more sugar per ounce than ice cream.
Yeah, people think that they're getting their serving of vegetables when they have
ketchup. That was the old Nancy Reagan. Well, for the kids' lunches, ketchup, that's a vegetable.
Yeah. Yeah. Ketchup, French fries and ketchup, right? Yeah. So there's aspartame. There's these other sugar substitutes: aspartame, Sunnit, Sweet One, Equal, NutraSweet. All of these, Splenda, as
Now,
we discussed.
stevia is an interesting one because
Is
stevia
stevia?
is natural, but doesn't that still stimulate the brain's centers for pleasure and potentially trigger a reaction from the pancreas?
I don't think so,
The
because unless
sweetness.
it's heavily processed,
Yeah.
I don't think so. It's a sweet
Okay.
leaf. It comes from a leaf in South America, and I don't think it has that effect at all. In fact, I have read studies when I was really looking at stevia like years ago. I had a stevia company, one of the owners of the company, he was on talking about the history of stevia, and he said that, well, I'm not going to just say he's the authority because he said it, but I know the research I did that it actually can help diabetics. It actually can balance blood sugar. So there's also xylitol, which is a sweetener, which has been touted as something that is helpful as well. So it's sort of more of a safe one. And, when we look at other natural sources like, the actual vegetables, the starchy vegetables and the fruit, we look at maple syrup. Depends how highly processed that is. Honey.
And how much you're using.
And how much.
If you have to have your pancakes swimming in a sea of maple syrup, you're in big trouble.
Yeah, you could add butter, and that'll slow down the uptake as well. So, but then you've got a whole
But I've seen, especially in my family growing up, oh, we got pancakes, and we're all like soaking it so much in syrup. Oh, I need more syrup, and they bringing it back again.
Well,
I'm not a huge fan of pancakes for breakfast, but that's just me.
Well, when you look at breakfast, like the standard breakfast, it's all just sugar anyway. It's all just dessert anyway, right?
Cocoa Puffs, Cocoa Pebbles,
all those cereals, bagels. I mean, just,
bagels are amazing. It's just the bagel itself is 450 calories.
Yeah. Well, we're not even just talking about calories. We're talking about what that turns into very quickly.
Yeah, because it's just so incredibly high and usually refined carbohydrates. I mean, most people don't even want the whole grain bagels.
So for breakfast, oftentimes I will have different things, but sometimes I'll just have a piece of cheese and some almonds. My latest thing is vanilla yogurt with almonds and blueberries or apples or whatever fruit I have. So that's what I have. It's a very balanced food, balanced meal. If I ever have any sort of grain product or any kind of I don't know. It's been a while since I've had that. Even toast with jam on it, I don't feel good. I really don't feel good.
How about Cheez-Its with jam on it?
Yeah. Are there Jam-Its? Are they called Jam?
We be jamming.
The Jam-Its. So honey, of course, Monika honey is an exceptional. It's also a great wound healer as well, Monika honey, but it's extremely expensive. So there are other, I don't say extremely, there are different types and levels of I'm not sure. They're kind of grades, I guess we would call them. There are different kinds of grades of the Monika, but there are many good honeys on the market as well.
Well, what about strategies for reducing refined sugar consumption other than just denying yourself completely? I mean, one thing that I did a few years ago, actually more than a few years ago, about a decade ago, I just stopped putting sugar in my coffee. So I'd have a little cream or as opposed to necessarily milk. And I just started eliminating the sugar, and that actually helped a lot.
Yeah. So, with coffee, for example, half and half, you can put half and half rather than milk because there's more lactose in milk, which is milk sugar, and you'll have more fat in the half and half. Even having heavy cream might be an option as well.
In fact, that's awesome. Heavy cream in coffee, just a little dab of that. It's a very different, smooth, enriching experience. You don't eat a lot
either. You know, one of the last times I went to Trader Joe's on my own, on March 17th, was it, I think?
Our little Monica's all grown up. She went to Trader Joe's on her own.
On my own. I went, and one of the regular staff, I mean, you get to know the staff.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
She said, like they were out of half and half. And she said, and she walked me to the cooler, the dairy cooler. She walked me there and she said, how about this heavy cream? I said, I guess so. And it lasted a long time as well. And it was just a little container. It was sort of like my safety go-to in case I never, ever get half and half again.
The half-life of my half and half.
Yeah. So anyway, there are just these simple steps to take, like what you had suggested, what you tried, and it worked for you. So
it did work. In fact, now if somebody gives me coffee and there happens to be sugar, and like I have not gone to any of these flavored Starbucks coffees and things because they're all full of different syrups. And the same thing is true of most of the iced teas and the others. Would you like this ultra, pomegranate, goji berry, whatever, and it's all sugary syrups that they stick in things.
I mean, and there's the whole sugary coffees that you get as well, and that's such a huge trend too.
The ones that are in bottles, you see that a lot. They have the Starbucks coffees in bottles.
Or even the lattes, which have everything in them. So I had someone go to get me some half and half. I had one of our aides go to get me some half and half yesterday, to buy some half and half, because I was, planning ahead.
Did she bring you the whole half and half?
She brought me 2 halves.
2 halves, making a whole.
Yeah, 2 halves, a gallon actually. But
wow.
I was very specific. There's so many half and half products. I didn't think this would be a whole episode on half and half, but there's a lot of them with a lot of additives. I've seen lists of like 20 added things. And I said, please do not do that. Make sure it's just 2 items on that label.
Well, and there's some of the other ones, you see the coconut creamer and soy creamer and this creamer and that creamer. You look at that label when you started, because I started becoming very big in label reading way back in the 90s, when actually you and I both were doing the health coach program with our friend Mark. And he, and that I just started reading labels all the time. And I was appalled most of the time, I was going to say half the time, when you'd look at some sort of a container, like a Coca-Cola, a little can of Coca-Cola, and realize it says 2 servings. And nobody drinks half of it and then comes back and drinks the other half at another time. They down the whole thing if it's 2 servings or 4 servings or whatever it is, because they go for the whole bottle and never half the bottle.
Yeah. I mean, it's so habitual and it's so pervasive. And, it's interesting. I always mention Ayurvedic medicine because I've studied it quite a bit. And in many cultures in the world, they get their sweetness in their meals. So in Ayurveda specifically, there are 6 tastes. So there's bitter, there's sweet, there's salty, there's sour, there's astringent, and there's pungent, right? So every meal has to have all those tastes in it, or else you're not satisfied. So you're looking for it in other ways. The Western diet, specifically North American diet, is really not addressing all of these tastes. So we're constantly looking for sugar and salt in other things, and hence the snack food industry. Perfect storm, right?
Yeah, because you've got salt, fat, sugar.
Yeah. There have been documentaries.
That's also what makes McDonald's French fries so addictive, is because one of my friends years ago, she, for her, I guess it was her business degree, did a whole thesis on McDonald's French fries. It was great, the origin, the whole thing. And it was the dipping of the French fry in sugar before frying that created that wonderful caramelized coating, the outer coating that gave it that crispness. And then so you had the fat, the sugar, and that means like the McDonald's fry with the sugar in it was just like the ultimate fast food treat.
And what it does is it plasticizes the food.
Yeah.
I remember Jeff Bland talking about that a long time ago, like in health coach, in the health coach era, that we were, early 90s, if not sooner.
Long before being a health coach was a trendy phrase or word.
Yes. Yeah, I started my health coach training in 1994 with Health Coach International, which a really profound course in training. There we go.
Functional dietetics.
Exactly. And that was created by Dr. Mark Percival,
Yeah.
and his wife was very involved. Cheryl was very
Yeah.
involved in that as
And
well. So,
he's trained both as a naturopathic doctor as well as a chiropractor.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, when I was telling clients, I would tell people about that, like, you want to eat plastic? Because what's that plastic going to do in your body? It's just going to sit there and cause havoc. So no French fries. That's why baked potato. Now they have baked French fries that you can just do it that way. That's much safer than deep frying it.
Yeah, deep frying is interesting. I mean, some things do taste better deep fried, although I've never had a deep fried Twinkie. That has to be the ultimate assault on your pancreas and your liver.
Oh my God.
Can you
Yeah.
imagine? Or deep fried butter. That was like at the Iowa State Fair.
It's crazy. It's crazy when you think, I mean, food is not entertainment. Food is not.
Well, that's interesting you say that, because I think that's the attitude of a lot of people, that we're going out to eat. We're going to have a good time.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. Having a good time with the people you're with is really, it's a social thing that we're really missing right now. It's a social event. And, every culture has always enjoyed having meals and sharing food.
Yeah, because it's a communal bonding experience too.
Yeah. So food is not entertainment. And so we need to savor and treasure and really, it's often not what we're eating, it's how we're eating it as well. Are we?
Well, and it's how fast somebody eats. Because if you take something that has a certain amount of sugar in and you're downing it as fast as possible, and you say, I'm still hungry, and you're eating and eating, you never allow your stomach to send the signal to the brain and vice versa. The communication is just not there, because, I mean, and I'm guilty of this way back when I was 18 to like 22, I was the master of the 4-minute meal. I would try to get from my class, not the 4-minute mile, the 4-minute meal.
Bannerman, right?
I would down this stuff as fast as possible, because I had to get from the dining hall, hauling my French horn and my butt all the way over to the music hall. And I had very limited time most of the time to eat. And I would just eat huge amounts of food as fast as possible. And that was not a good strategy. And so I learned the hard way that, when you start burping when you're playing your French horn, it's not really, it doesn't make for sweet, dulcet tones. So,
yeah. It's like when I was dancing, doing ballet and modern and all these other dance forms, you could not eat very much, but you were certainly hungry after, because you'd expended all this energy. I grew up in a very big family, the youngest. Eating fast was part of the terrain,
Well, yeah, because so my mom would do things like this. This was like, there's 7 of us at the table and 10 pieces of chicken. So if you eat your chicken, or your chicken, as she would say, as quickly as possible, it meant that you could get seconds. And so that's where I get my early training. Really? Oh, yeah. Because, hey, there's 10 pieces and there's 7 of us.
Going on?
What's that?
Was there rationing going on?
No, there wasn't rationing. I wasn't like in World War II or something.
Fast eating?
No, because the package, she would buy a package in the supermarket.
It wasn't intentional, really.
No, the old A&P or something like that, there would be X number of pieces within a package. And so, it was strategic eating, which was clean your plate as fast as you can so you can get more. Right?
Our thing was eat it so you can get your dessert.
Well, yeah, that was that too. But that was
the incentive. Yeah. And having a sweet tooth, there is a genetic factor, a very profound genetic factor.
I've got it big time, which is why restricting some of these sweets is really important to me in order to preserve my pancreas. But diabetes doesn't run in our family either.
Well, my husband's family, it didn't run in his family either. So sometimes it's not a factor. Sometimes it's just, again, a perfect storm when you've got these habits and you have a predisposition for something going wrong.
Well, and with the wrong habits and determination, you too can cause a disease in your body.
Yeah, it's it's sad but true, but
Yeah.
it also gives us power. And here
Yeah.
we are in this time where we talked about doing food journaling on Wednesday. We talked about doing food journaling where you can have, it gives you a place where you can seemingly have more control about your food, what you're eating, what you're taking in. And so we're sequestered, and it's an opportunity for us to have more control, make better choices, not get all this stuff in the markets.
Well, but also I think there's a tremendous psychology that's involved in this too, which is the notion of mindfulness or intentional eating. And as you mentioned earlier about savoring something so that you're not just going through an entire bag of Doritos or Oreos or whatever it is, but you're also asking yourself the question, what am I feeling right now? And am I nervous eating? Am I stress eating? You know, what's really going on here? Because I think for a lot of us in the, I won't call it quarantine, but in the stay-at-home situation, there is boredom. And as you said earlier, food is entertainment. So even snack foods become entertainment when you don't have a crew of people around you.
I think savoring will overcome any sense of deprivation. I really do. We do have more time, so we can savor. We can start the practice of savoring, if it becomes if we can call it a practice, or just really identifying like, wow, this really tastes good, because it's we have time. It's good for you. It's nourishing you, and
but I also think never neglect the emotional factors that are associated with eating. I mean, I've seen that when I had my weight loss clinic back in DC and others, it was mainly a psychological battle. It was emotional control. It was soothing our feelings. It was, and all of these, the journaling is great too, because if you can not only put down the food that you're eating, the mood that you were feeling at the time you were eating is also very significant.
Yeah. When I have put people on my programs, it's like has a very calming effect, and not only the chemistry, the chemical chemistry of the food, but the chemical reaction of what you're eating within your body, and the nutrients that you're taking in work together, so it has a calming effect.
Yeah, because then the neurochemistry is changed too.
Right. So your whole biochemistry is changing because of the actual eating and the food choices that you're making.
Right.
And also, that you're doing something good for yourself. So it's like on top of one another, like this, the psychological benefit, it's the physiological benefit, it's the almost a spiritual benefit. I mean, you will feel so much better in every way.
Feed your body and your soul.
Amen to that.
So, have more fish.
How are we doing for time?
I think we're good. I think we've pretty much covered a good bunch of stuff, and we're at about the 40-minute mark. We can continue with this at another time if you'd like.
Friday, Formal Friday.
This is Fishy Friday for me and Formal Friday for you, for all of our friends who are frolicking. Actually, there's not too much frolicking going on while you're staying at home. Or is there? Frolicking Friday?
What your definition of frolicking is?
Well, yeah, I'm thinking like, Sound of Music, dancing through the hills of Austria.
Dancing through the bedrooms, dancing through
the bedrooms, yeah, all three bedrooms. But
yeah.
So the whole sugar thing is very interesting. I mean, I was going to say we opened up a whole can of worms, but no, we actually opened up a whole bag of sugar.
Yeah.
Oh, in terms of sugar consumption, I was reading something.
High levels.
Yeah, but in 1865, the average American consumed about 20 pounds of sugar for the entire year. And around the turn of the century in 1900, 1910, it was something in the neighborhood of 40 pounds of sugar or so. And by the time we reached, I guess, the 1990s or so, we were in the range of 125 pounds of sugar per person in the United States. I want to know what it is now, almost 30 years later. How many pounds of sugar per? Do you have any idea?
I bet the statistics are readily available. I will check that as soon as we get.
I'm willing to bet it's like 150 pounds of sugar to 60, somewhere in that range.
It's extraordinary.
Yeah. And the degenerative disease associated with the consumption of so much sugar let alone fat and salt and stuff, is tremendous. But I will say, if I were to choose between salt, fat, and sugar, I would say sugar is the most important one to eliminate. Or
I agree.
Reduce greatly. Let's put it that way.
I agree. And the fat, you do need the fat. It's just
and fat tastes good. I mean, we're designed to be fat burning creatures.
It
anyway.
has more of a satiety factor.
Yeah.
And it doesn't cause you to keep eating and eating and eating and wanting more of that. So
fat tastes good.
Right. Maybe we should talk about fat next time.
We should talk about fat. Good fat, bad fat.
Yeah.
Fat swaller.
Have a fat live.
PHAT. Get fat on fat.
Yeah. We'll talk about fat. What's the
fat? It's where it's at.
Yeah. Fat. It's where it's at.
The cat in the hat was not fat.
All right. Well, stay cool, everyone. I mean, I'm sure we're the only ones. I mean, the rest of the country.
We're not the only ones. There's 40 million people in the state of California.
Well, what I mean is not everyone is suffering through 90 degrees when
that is true.
It was winter 2 days ago, and now it's
I have friends who had snow on the ground. My brother in Massachusetts had snow on the ground last week. So
I actually had a dream last night.
Like Dr. King?
I had a dream, and there was snow here outside my door.
See, that would be my dream come true if I could see just a little half-inch of snow in San Diego.
Yeah, well, I mean, we don't know.
I mean, it only has to last for an hour or two. But we had hail a couple of weeks ago. That was interesting. All the little
interesting.
We had hail all over the place, and I just couldn't wait to get out there and start touching all those little ice balls.
We've had it here before in Southern California, but it's kind of rare. But anyway, let's have a good and safe weekend, and
stay safe.
Stay safe.
Don't overindulge. Stay at home whenever possible. Use your mask. Don't drink too much from your flask. All right, we'll be back next week, Wednesday, which will be 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. And you can do the math everywhere in between. All right.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Now I got to find the gosh darn button to finish this thing. There we go. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Taking its sweet old time to stop.
I'm watching the time. 42, 31.
I'm wondering why it doesn't stop. I got one good way to stop it. I just get rid of the entire broadcast studio. Bye.
Bye.